So today I want to talk about what I can maybe call what if analysis. So the idea that I should talk about this became stronger as I was thinking the following question. Suppose that there is someone who um, has you have given him or her the authority to, let's say, handle a piece of your life, or has a natural right to assume such authority. For example, parents do that for their children. So they try to, for example, in some cases, protect them from some things, etc. So the important question is here: how do you evaluate how what they do? And this is the last phrase I used. The what they do is important, which will bring me to the important insight here I have to make this diary entry. Um, so, so reality in one way or another is to some approximation linear. Given the state of the world, it chooses one execution path. So I'm not sure this is generally true. However, to some approximation, let's think about that it is, because it's more practical to do so. So the important question is here: how do you evaluate? So, if it's your parents, your father, your mother, whatever, it is important question to evaluate what they did and what they didn't do, because everyone, I think it's very important for the children to do that. But let's think about a more abstract question, like how do you evaluate? How do you evaluate a person? Let me call this a human entity that has some responsibility with respect to something. In a sense, managing some aspect of something due to evaluation. So basically, as far as I understand, evaluations go like this. This person did this, which was really great, and so on. And the person that did that. So, and this is the problem here. What if analysis perspective, I assume here, suggests that this is highly problematic because of some things you didn't do are also very important, and there is no trace of this to evaluate that person. So according to the what you did and what you did thing, it can be a problem, but what you didn't do also is a problem. So I think evaluations need to be thought over again. So I'm referring like to things like corporations, academic jobs, etc. So in my opinion, to evaluate really something, you have to do a what if analysis of what they did and what they didn't do, etc. Again, like distinction between action and inaction or whatever is only a piece of the puzzle. So if it's like a political entity, human assuming the role of a political role, etc. What they did and what they didn't do is very important. So evaluating important figures whose decisions affect a very large number of people is also important, not with respect to what they did only. So this is bothering me. I think evaluations are highly problematic. And if you think about it like chess, so you could say like if I could do a simulation of what would have happened had other things, not other things, or not necessarily had reality been different, So the real question here is this, from a political perspective. Suppose you prevent a war from something you didn't do. You see my point? The person that didn't do something to prevent a war should get credit for that. In my opinion, evaluating people should, for now, lacking any better criteria, should be a highly intuitive and collective process of thinking and pondering, etc. It's not like a couple of milestones, like I did this or I achieved this. So I didn't screw it up, for example. Should be put in the CV. So, okay. I will try to continue my thoughts. So I think this type of what-if analysis, or I will try to talk about what I might dub the. It sounds slightly weird, but I will explain. The Greek soul, and by Greek soul I mean the soul of an average Greek person. Not average. Let's say average in the sense of how they perceive their significance with respect to something like, say, the social system, viewing themselves as mostly subjects of the system rather than entities which can influence the system. I say, so I say average Greek, the soul of the average Greek person, the Greek soul. It's like I can say sea that has lost its welter. So when I was a small person going to our country house in Eritrea, I used to play backgammon with a grandpa, pappuli, who used to live right above, I mean geographically, our country house, right next, but as the hill was in an uphill fashion. So I used to go there and play backgammon. I recall he was a very smart person. I'm not sure by which standard, but I enjoyed a lot playing backgammon with him, let's put it that way. So I was intrigued by his intellect. So I used to beat him a lot, but that's okay. So he was telling me at some point that maybe it was not me, maybe it was an argument, which was I was in the audience of the argument. I don't remember if it was addressed to me. He was saying that if he hadn't been smoking, he would have saved a lot of money. And with this money, he could have done great things. It sounded like very weird to me as an argument, but it introduced me to this type of analysis, I think. What if? So in continuing with this thread, I wanted to say something that my father was telling me. So he told me that we are descendants of Kolokotrones. So he was a very key figure in the Greek revolution against Turkey. He started the revolution. So there is this misconception in Greece that when someone says something like that, it's probably because they are conceited and, you know. But he also told me how the revolution started. I didn't pay attention so much to my father. But anyway, Kolokotrones was indeed from where we are descended, geographically, I mean. So, but he told me how the revolution started. And I don't think this is known. Maybe it is, and I hope it is, but he told me what he did. So basically, he started the revolution. He didn't have an army. He had a few people that were fighting with him, soldiers maybe. And if I remember correctly, so he claimed independence himself. He claimed the castle, I think. I don't remember what it was. And the Turkish army moved against him. And so it was not like the army of the Ottoman Empire. It was like a local, probably, thing. And what he did was the following. He put these fake, I don't remember the English word. He put these fake things to, so that birds don't go to, don't eat the tomatoes, I don't know what it's called. Don't eat the vegetables, what you cultivate in the land. He put these fake things and he burned them as the Turks approached. And to make the point that his army is big. And so the Turks didn't attack the Ottomans. So I don't think this is known, but that's the story from my father. I remember my father was telling me, I showed him some books at some point, and he said that he could have been, he could have written a lot of books. So I didn't know what to do about that. At some point, much later, I even told him that I can be your secretary if you devise a plan, a business plan for something I was trying to do for Africa, but my father had been completely crushed by the system. So anyway, the what if analysis is something a person approaching the end of his life does. So, what might have been? So I will close this thing by saying that in Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, something like that, which I had read after I had a leave of absence from Princeton and came to Greece and was trying to do something about my life because things were highly broken there and here. So Stephen Covey writes in his book that it's very important in your life to do what if analysis and to do things and then think of them retrospectively. What would have happened had I did this and this and this and that? It's something that I do. I felt weird before reading Covey's book, but it's very important. And I think I will express the opinion, not very strongly, but I think we should do it collectively about things that happen in a country. like what if, so that we put credit to some politicians that are losing their sleep and destroying their personal lives and etc. to make them feel more comfortable to actually live nicely instead of criticizing all of the time. Because it's an extremely responsible thing to decide if you're gonna bomb or you're not gonna bomb, and how you're gonna talk to the I try the Greek word I have in my mind is feterizome. So there are people that are forcefully trying to take control of your responsibilities in a country, and you have to respond to them in a polite and kind fashion to avoid starting a conflict. So anyway, my point is that maybe we should do this what if analysis and what might have been analysis uh, collectively for political figures, etc. But in general, everyone has every right to do this type of analysis, even loud or not loud, and people should feel comfortable doing that because I think, in my humble opinion, that it helps. So, okay.